Shalom to everyone. Today I have something very important that I want to share with everyone about this, terrible exile, bitter exile that we're in, disunity, Lashon Hara and everything. Happens to be from this week's Parsha Vayeshev and Hanukkah, from a book, The Rebbe's Pharmacy, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. Sure you can find it at anywhere. The second book, which I'll have a little bit on too, is Rabbi Hook's book, which is Gold from the Land of Israel. Anyway, these are going to be some excerpts from some of the pages here, pages 67 through 73-ish. Okay. So the highest level of truth is the unfathomable compassion that Hashem has for the Jewish people, even when we're lost in the temptations of the modern world. Okay? From this week's Parsha, we learn what prolongs this terrible and bitter exile and causes us incredible suffering. Machlokes, disagreement among the Tzaddikim. As each generation passes by and we get sucked further into the garbage dump of technology, temptations, and deep emotional brokenness, we naturally look to the Tzaddikim for guidance. Who wouldn't? Perhaps they found a way to escape the darkness of the modern world. Perhaps they know how to help us find our way back to Hashem. That's what we hope, isn't it? That's what all of us hope. However, the big however, when we see the Machlokes among the Tzaddikim, we fall into complete and utter hopelessness. We ourselves are in such a low place that there is no way for us to discern who is right. How could we stick our heads between the great minds of our generation and describe which one we should follow? Therefore, we don't connect deeply to any of them, and we give up trying to save ourselves from the spiritual suffering that we feel in our souls. We don't know whether we should turn right or left, so we just stay put. The problem is that we're standing in quicksand, sinking rapidly into a pit of despair. In our hearts, we sometimes even question the legitimacy of the Tzaddikim. If they're truly righteous, then how is it possible for them to have such arguments? This is the incredibly destructive power of Machlokes. So the next part here goes on. He talks about the tzaddik who has reached the ultimate truth. This is the theme of the beginning of this week's Parsha, which describes the disagreement between Yosef HaTzaddik and his brothers. The Torah tells us that all the tribes of Israel were tzaddikim. Yaakov Avinu merited to have 12 sons who were all holy and righteous, and yet some of Yosef HaTzaddik's brothers wanted to kill him. How is this possible? Both in the story of Yosef HaTzaddik and in today's world as well. More importantly, how are we supposed to connect to any tzaddik in our generation and rise above the filth of modern times in the face of such machlokes and confusion? Reb Nosson, who was a Talmudim or a disciple of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, explains that it can't logically be possible for any two people to be on the same spiritual level. One of them worked harder in his avodah and reached a higher place than the other. The same is true regarding the tzaddikim. Although they are all very righteous and serve Hashem with incredible devikut, there has to be a differentiation between them. Even though the Torah of all the tzaddikim who follow in the tradition of the sages is true and their teachings are essential for the continuation of the Jewish people, and thus we must honor and respect them all, some tzaddikim have reached higher understandings of truth than others. In addition, there must be one tzaddik who has attained the ultimate level of truth. As the sages say, debar echad lador. There can only be one leader of each generation. Therefore, even though all of the tribes of Israel were tzaddikim, and they had achieved many levels of truth in their own right, they struggled to comprehend the truth of Yosef HaTzadik, since he was exponentially higher than their understanding. Because of this, they honestly thought that Yosef HaTzadik was acting out of line and they had to get rid of him for Hashem's sake. But in reality, his behavior was simply beyond their ability to grasp. How many times do we see that? How many things are we hearing? The call for disunity, or dragging someone through the coals, or their good name taken out of context. The same is true of all arguments between the tzaddikim throughout the generations. Just like Yosef HaTzadik's brothers, a tzaddik who has a lower level of truth thinks he's acting lishma, for the sake of heaven, in his Machlokes with another tzaddik. He truly believes that he's doing the right thing by slandering him and trying to bring him down. However, due to his lack of comprehension of the level of the higher tzaddik, he's making a grievous mistake. This is how it's possible to have disagreements even among true tzaddikim. Now, if you want to get this book, you can read more. The next part is about Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, which is pretty good. Goes on into Hanukkah. And then the last part I'm going to read from this book is the tzaddik who can inspire us to do teshuvah. Okay, we can begin to understand and deal with the Machlokes between the tzaddikim of our generation and search for the tzaddik who has reached the highest level of truth. The formula is very simple. It's simple. We must find one who is able to help us to do teshuvah and to come closer to Hashem. Okay, and then I could read more of this. I don't want to take too much more time. Okay, that's true. Okay. All right, so I'm going to zip forward here to Gold from the Land of Ophir, page 76, 78. Okay. Talks about integration versus separation. Okay. The root of the disagreement among the brothers, this is on this Torah portion, Vayeshev. The root of the disagreement among the brothers was, in fact, ideological. There were two schools of thought in Yaakov's family, one championed by Yosef, the other by Yehuda. Yosef stressed the mission of the Jewish people as a light unto the nations. In order to fulfill his goal, Yosef felt that he must interact with the nations of the world and expose them to the monotheistic teachings of Judaism. Judah, on the other hand, was concerned about the negative influences when intermingling with pagan cultures. He emphasized the separate sanctity of the Jewish people, a nation that dwells alone, Bamidbar 23:9. Judah feared that Joseph's philosophy of openness and integration would endanger the future of the Jewish people, but how to safely neutralize this threat? Shimon and Levi, who had already fought against assimilation when they decimated the city of Shechem for kidnapping Dinah, planned to simply kill Yosef. Yehuda objected. What profit is there if we kill our brother? The true danger is not Yosef, but the school of thought. Let's put his theories to the test. We will sell Yosef to the Ishmaelites and let him assimilate among the nations. Then all will see where his ideas lead to. Then it talks about the temple and the tabernacle and the Hellenists versus the Hasmonean priests. And if you want to get the book and read the rest of it, oops, there we go, you can. My point in reading these things today is that there's so much disunity and Machlokes and Lashon Hara going on between Tzaddikim. There is. You can't get around that fact. He said this, he's wrong about this, continually. We have to find a common denominator where we can get along amongst everyone. Doesn't mean that we blatantly put our hands up and go against something in Hashem's word and his Torah. Doesn't mean that. But we need to stop dragging people through the coals and slandering names, especially good teachers. Okay? That's my reason for bringing this to, and thank you for listening. Chag Sameach, and have a wonderful Hanukkah, everyone who celebrates.